to point out is the acknowledgements. So the trust and safety, there was a lot of trust and safety. There were actually a lot of acknowledgements done by the coach. And the other thing was the beautiful, the beautiful dance between that laughter and seriousness. And it was really done so, so beautiful. So beautiful. And it felt like that really aided with the feeling of trust and safety within the client. So those were just a couple of remarks from my side.
Thank you so much, Anna-Karine. Really beautiful what you have shared with us. So yes, we can see part of that expanding of the mind. We can see some of the tools that you will see in the advanced, but we can see that the principle that everyone knows from the core is already being demonstrated. And how I really appreciate, like you said as well, this dance this between lightness and seriousness and playfulness, I want to say, actually, of both the coach and the client together. There was times where it was like messy and then they were back together. So really lovely. Susan, we have you here as well. Would you like to share?
Sure, Azadeh. Thank you. And this was I really appreciate this conversation, totally beautiful conversation. But what stood out really strongly for me was the active listening. And I think, there's been this connection. We say that listening is also a reflection of the coach's thinking process. And I think that came out really strongly in this conversation, in the manner in which the coach bulleted, in the manner in which the coach raised the awareness of the client, in the manner in which the connections that the coach was able to bring out from what the client was offering. And really also, as Anna-Karine said, the manner in which the coach held that metaphor throughout the conversation. But I think for me, the awareness and the clarity, which came out through the bulleting, because he was really able to pick exactly what the client needed to hear and to be reflected back in order to, to frame that content beautifully for the client, to put it in stark relief for the client to really see herself and what was going on. So for me, that link between listening and processing.
Wow.
Thank you.
That is beautiful. So what really came for me is how Ben always says, I can see how you think by your questions. And throughout the training, I myself have sometimes where I'm like, oops, yeah. So what we reflect back, what we pick up as a reflection, and even what we inquire really shows us what is the coach actually paying attention to. And indeed, the listening seems to be a passive, something that we cannot see, but the way that the listening shows itself is the intentionality with which the coach puts something forth for the client. Thank you, Susan, for your observation of watching the coaches. Go ahead, Ben. Thank you.
Yeah, I just remember something from the ICF core competency that was before it was updated, the old ICF core competency. There was a statement there that says that the coach used humor and lightness as part of the coaching presence, but unfortunately I don't think that is there in the new core competency. So this is a good news for me because by nature I'm very playful. So I'm kind of like hold on to that statement. Look, ICF says we can use lightness and humor, as part of the process of lightening, but there's also some science around it, right? I mean, we are not being funny, right? It's being fun, it's not entertaining, it's life, it is light, right? So I think that the manner in which you can bring that, into the space to lighten, the heaviness that the clients is experience. I think that is like like a breeze that just, wow, it's just woof, so the good news is that we don't have to be, what would you like to talk about today? Right, that we can really be authentic and professional, and at the same time having the fun, so that the clients really see us as who we are as a person. I have a name. I'm not a coach, right? I have a name. My name is Ben Cole, right? So I want my clients to see me too as a person, not as a professional role, just like how you see a counselor. I mean, it scared me when I was young. I was very naughty back in school days. I have to see the counselors most of the time. Okay, I'm just and back in those days, it's not fun seeing those school counselors. They are like disciplinary master, right? So I can imagine the kind of image that you know, I mean, if I'm a client, I mean, the last thing that I will want to see my coach. I know before the coaching conversation, everybody got angelic face. Oh, but then when the conversation started, the angelic face disappeared. You get so serious to tackle the issue. I mean, it scared me. It made me feel like I have to answer questions, right? But I want to have a conversation. I really want to talk to someone, and yet at the same time, I want you to help me to find something, So I think the manner in which we balance, the space is going to be a great challenge, isn't it? Because if you focus too much on your technique, that means what question to ask, what answer did I need from my client. If this is how you're thinking about coaching, wow, it's very scary to be a client. I mean, it's very scary for me if I mean, I would be scared as a client. You know what I mean? So this is really a encouragement to all of us. Um, focus on, okay, there's also another extreme that we get too careless with the manner in which we carry out the conversations, right? So the skill set has to be balanced with rigorous training to drill the concept into your mind, and to be so natural in expression. So henceforth, you will find the way we train our coach, I mean, the way you're being trained at the core level, can you see that we don't teach you any questions? Right? No question was being taught, but a lot of applications has been brought to your attention, whereby you have to apply your understanding to fill in the blanks. You, subject matter, relationship. And you will have to express it with your own sense of what you are observing. So henceforth, the chances of your conversation sounds more dialogic is higher versus you memorizing a whole chunk of questions. Make sense? Questions is powerful when you know what you want this question to achieve, right? Because you get what you ask. So if you do not know what you want, and you ask, and then you get what you want, and then you regret it. And there is a rule, there is a Chinese philosophy that you can eat anything. And I mean, even if you eat the wrong thing, the most you end up in hospital, and they just kind of like clean you up. But if you say the wrong word, there's nothing you can do to take it back. I mean, this is a Chinese wisdom here, right? So it means that the spoken language, has a certain power when you are able to give life to it. So the way we teach our coaches, that means all of you, how you reflect back what you observe is a science by itself, right? Because you have to fill in your own stuff. What do you observe, right? And then you are trained to pay attention to a certain element, not the details, not everything, certain things that makes the story alive, right? So that's the kind of training we brought you guys through. Now, and that's the reason why we also do life coaching like this, because we all understand the word emotions, but we do not know how to observe that in a real case. But as coaches, you do not deal with artificial client. You deal with real client. So you need to learn how to see real emotions in a real case so you can identify with it. Let me repeat again. We all understand the word emotions, but we are not asking you whether you know what is the word emotion means. We are asking you, can you observe emotions? Yes, the person is feeling happy. That's not emotions. That's called feeling. Okay? Don't confuse feelings from emotions. You may be thinking, oh my God, what is this person trying to say? But that is what called emotions and feelings. Are they the same? Yeah, are they interchangeable? I don't know. They are just the same. Well, if everything is the same, then that is how you're going to coach. You're going to coach your clients with very superficial impact. Why? Because the fundamental is that coaching happens in a fill in the blanks. Oh, we need to have online exam for you to pass your certification. These are all constructs that we taught in class. What on earth you guys are memorizing? I'm memorizing the questions. That's not about the question, right? Coaching happens in a
Moment.
common conversations, right? What does it mean that coaching happens in a conversation? Our clients use language, right? Use language to relate to an experience that they had went through. What was this experience? What is this experience that we're referring to? The way they are seeing how the situation, them in the situation, and seeing that playing at the back of their mind. Remember, it is a memory. As the client is talking to you, what was happening? This is how I'm thinking about it. This is the client is always remembering certain parts of the life, of the certain part of things that has happened, and see herself actually trying to deal with it. These are perceptions, and that's what we are dealing with as a coach. If you are wanting to do a transformational impact, transactional impact, don't bother. Just look at the situation, deal with the situation, and get a goal and fix it. That is much easier, right? But to shift the mind is a different ball game altogether. I know you know what is what is a racket, but please understand table tennis, a tennis racket is not the same as a badminton racket, even though they look the same to some degree. Okay, but they are not the same. When we want to talk about transformational impact, the content that we're working with, what we are focusing on, what is it that we need to observe is totally different. And I am convinced that most untrained coaches use the management science knowledge to deal with human issues. Okay, that's very cruel. Okay, that is very cruel. Please don't do that. Can you see? Okay, because they see goal as something we want to achieve. They look at situation and try to get a way forward to achieve that, right? So the mind the training of the coach now requires a radical shift on with a different set of knowledge on human psychology. Do you understand this? Okay, it would be easy if your goal as a coach is to help clients to find a solution, because all you need is very good model to increase optimum impact for solutions, which is available as with a lot of models, right? But you need to understand that this will not work if we are talking about transformational impact on shifting the way people look at things. You need to rely on a different set of knowledge, human psychology. And so as part of the core training, that's why we painfully, at least in the core level, we share with you thinking, inference, learning, right? And then we give you simple framework to begin with at the core level. How to observe some aspect of the thinking, the client's way of thinking. The elements are a byproduct of the client's thinking, but it is not presented as a raw content in the client's spoken words. Like, for example, do you notice two things that was reflected back to the client? Scared, confused. That's the oral form of the client's thought that is not processed yet. And when I reflect that back to the clients, I say that there is a mixed feeling. So feeling from an NLP technique point of view, feeling is one category above scary, right? Happy, sad, scary. These are all different form of feeling. So when you are able to say you have mixed feeling, you are elevating the clients away from the details to a higher order. That's what we taught you in the class. That's what the elements are for. Elevate the client's perceptions from the detail level to the higher order. A shift happens when the order is high, not low, right? So the second one is confuse. Confuse. It was reflected back as you have mixed thinking. There are mixed thought at the back of your mind. So technically speaking, I have reflected back to two sources where the tension is arising for the clients. The one at the level of feeling, and another one at the level of thinking. And do you notice how that radically shifts the client's mind away from her story to be able to now observe herself? And that's what we call a science-based approach, that you don't have to worry. As long as you trust the science will naturally take its impact, unless there are resistance that happens that limits the impact of the science, right? But in this case, the clients shifted and said, whoa, I begin to see myself differently, because the reflection back to the clients now is on a elevated perspective. So far, so good. So the science itself will gradually has its different different form of application, as in how it's being applied. But fundamentally, the science is to observe element. Why do we observe element? How do you go about observing element? It forces you to see above the details, right? You take a whole few chunk of what the client says, and then you consider, what is this that the client is referring to? That requires a lot of thinking capacity from who? from the coach. From the coach. Wow, isn't that amazing? Right? So eventually, you as a coach who use a transformation approach, you are constantly on the daily basis stimulating what level of learning, horizontal or vertical? Vertical. You are stimulating yourself using vertical learning because you're constantly stretching your own thinking capacity. Wow. Because you cannot coach a client that has a higher thinking capacity than you. Not that they are smarter, but your ability to see the content has to be elevated. If you can only see details and your only thing that you see is there's a problem, I want to solve the problem. Then that is so much you can create from the process. So far, so good. So when that's explain why in the core training, it is challenging, but who give up on exercising just because it is tiring? Right? That's the whole idea of exercising. Sweat. If there is no sweat, where is the gain? Is transformational change as simple as just memorizing questions? Good, then enjoy the sweat. Got it? Are we happy with the session today? Great, thank you. So, as it we have Louis. As it would you like to help Louis with it?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes, thank you. I'm just I have a curiosity because I'm not clear on one thing. You mentioned feelings and emotions, okay? And I'm struggling there. And so maybe to help me, if you can give me an example of an emotion of the client, because the feelings, I thought they were emotions. So maybe you can help me. Thank you.
What is the example of transportation?
Excuse me?
What is that? What are some example of transportation?
No, I know that the cars and then those are means of transport. I understand the fact that you go a higher level. Yeah, but the feelings of, you said, I can't remember, but you mentioned that what the client felt were feelings. But now, what were the emotions? What is an emotion compared to a feeling? There is where
What
I'm
is the
confused.
transportation?
A transportation is a car, a bicycle, whatever. Yes, a train.
These are example of transportation. So what is
Yeah.
transportation?
What is transportation is a way of going from one place to another, right?
Great. So what is emotions?
Hey, that I don't know. Emotion is something that you feel. I mean,
Good. Yeah. So what are some ways of feeling things?
you can be angry, you can be happy, you can be, yeah.
You got it.
And so what is the difference between an emotion and a feeling? I mean,
It's
what
just
would
that
be
what's the difference between a transportation and a car? Yeah, what's the difference between a transportation and a car?
The car is itself the mean of transportation. So is the way you go from one place to the other, right? And transportation is the class. How can I say? Yeah.
Don't confuse between a label versus example of the label. Okay. So emotion is a label in which tell us that this is how people feel things. And what are some example of things that people can feel? There are things like scary, happy, sad. These are just like cars and bus and motorcycles. And all these are just example of how people feel about things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. And the emotion is the more general one, right?
It's just a way of how people express how they feel.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Not so easy. I have to think about it. Thank you.
It's just like, what is transportation? What's the difference between transportation and car? Wrong question. There's no such question as in what's the difference between a transportation and a car. The only way that I can tell you is transportation is not a car because it's a label that describes a category of things that move, that bring people from point A to point B. An example of a transportation is a car. So we can ask the questions, what's the difference between emotions and feeling? Because if you ask in that way, you're seeing emotions as the same as feeling. Okay, so that is the order of, it's a wrong order of placement. Make sense? Wow, great. So be very tactful when we ask questions, because our questions can either free us or enslave us. True? Right. Great, great. So today what we do is just, what I try to frame is to look at the higher order things like emotions, thought. These are all higher order. Okay. So far so good? Good. And those are in the advanced level. These are what is expected of you to be able to observe. Okay. So far so good? Great. So at the beginning, we had to start with something that everybody can achieve. So we start off with a much more super high order things called elements. The element is super high. Okay, in between the element and the details is all this subcategory called emotions, thoughts, beliefs, all this stuff. These are the middle range category. Then one category below will be the exact manifestation of it. That is usually in the client story. Now, what is challenging is that sometimes they don't necessarily appear exactly like, this is my emotions. My emotions is scary. I have a lot of thought. One of the thoughts is confusion. So the clients will not be able to say things like that. Right? What's the benefit of us therefore reflecting back? Oh, I hear that there are two things that is going through you. They're going through you at the level of emotions, at the level of your thought. What it does is that it brings the clients out, because when you elevate the details, they can see something that is not the same. Because now they begin to detach themselves from the details. Oh, it's not about scary, it's about emotions. So when they're able to hear the word emotions, the mind tells the client, hey, this is one level up here. And that henceforth, what it creates is a distance between the clients and their content. So henceforth, by reflecting back in this precise manner, you are helping the clients to gain an observer positions. So far, so good? Great. So that's the science that we're talking about. So how do we execute it? That's where the drills comes in. You, subject matter, how they are relating to that. That's the entry point to create an observer mindset for you as a coach. Because only as an observer, you are able to see things at a different elevated perspective, right? Will that happen naturally? No, it will not happen naturally. That's why some of you are suffering and crying. Because day in, day out, we constantly reinforce the drill for you. How many things do you hear? Why is that necessary? Because the moment you try to say how many things I'm hearing, you are creating a discipline of not eating the elephant in one mouth. Right? That's what, can you imagine? So gruesome that a big elephant is trying to squeeze into your mouth and the coach trying to offer that. They say so much things. The client doesn't need you to describe what you are saying. They need you to bring clarity to what exactly are they experiencing. So being I hear two things, and lock down to the element brings clarity. Is that making sense? Okay, great. I hope you're appreciating the drills, okay, that we're bringing you through at the core level. When these drills is firmly established, you will find great freedom when you move on to the next level to create a more colorful picture. Now, that colorful picture sits on this solid foundation of you have this way of thinking that I'm making observation. I'm making observation. So henceforth, we need your cooperation to do the drills and not do it in your own style. Because if you do it in your own style, you're just saying, I want to create water by adding 2 oxygen and 1 hydrogen. And that's my water. I'm not sure, but I need 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen. Yes, it's okay. I'll give you 2 oxygen and 1 hydrogen, and I'll call that water. Why is it doesn't taste like water? Science means you have to follow the rule. Okay, I see so many coaches so stubborn, seriously. Okay, stubbornly not doing the bullet thing. Seriously, just listen to your recording and you will see how they're so stubborn. 10 words, they give you 20 words. We say begin with you, subject matter, to begin with, the situation is this. This is what you are experiencing. And therefore, this is what happens. And this is what you want, but you cannot achieve that. This is not called science. Okay? We did not tell you that you need to add a but and because, therefore, as such, into your reflecting back. Remember this, right? So that's why there is a certain respect that when I'm learning a skill, I need to respect what I'm learning, right? You cannot go into a badminton court and play the game as if that this is a tennis. Worse still, you think this is a basketball. See what I mean? So there is a certain respect that you need to give to the skill that you're learning. So if you choose to do it in your own style, then, then just be ready to get whatever that you are creating, right? Do you understand the simple rules? Great. Woo. Okay. So let's come back to the question here. Okay, there are some important questions. Curious questions. Can you please explain the first metaphor, which is a quicksand? Great. Are you ready to expect responsibility of the truth that you're sharing? Wow, great observation. How do you choose a metaphor that is relevant to the client? If it doesn't resonate with the clients, can we offer a second one? Great, great. I'm going to invite Azadeh to comment on the first and the third questions because she's the faculty member teaching the second level on the metaphor. So she's the best person to offer insight around it. Azadeh, will you be able to go for it?
Thank you. So yeah, what are we paying attention to when we are picking the metaphor is one of the things that in our reflections back. So first of all, for those of you in the first training, it's just a tool to reflect back. As we can reflect back using bulleting, we can also use an image to reflect back. And that's something that we learn later on. And the same principles apply that we are observing what is the client experiencing. The experience of the client is what we're trying to put forth, not the situation itself, not the details of the situation, but what is it that the client is experiencing, and that in an image form. And to the second question, what if it doesn't land? Well, it happens. It certainly has happened to me before. As we're human beings, so we see it's as if the coach is playing an image through their eyes, but capturing the experience of the client. So it's like through my eyes, I see you, but you see through my eyes. So it could be that it doesn't land. And then the core competencies say that we demonstrate non-attachment. And we may invite the client to say, so what would be another image that actually better shows or represents what it is that is true for you? And there we can invite the client to share. Yeah.
Thank you, Azadeh. So back to the first questions, can you explain the first metaphor? I think that would be best answered by me because I created that metaphor. So I think Azadeh will be able to mention other few stuff, but number one, what I would say is that give yourself room for creativity. Okay, that means it's not going to be the same for another coach trying to create a metaphor to, in this conversation, we will all have a different metaphor here. So give room for creativity. It means that whatever that you can come up with, accept that is the best that is available in the moment. Okay, so that's the basis that I will begin with. Then the second thing that I like to offer is that the metaphor is, as what Azadeh mentioned, is meant to expand the mind. So henceforth, we need to consider what are the conditions, what are the things that we need to consider right now in creating a metaphor that allows the mind to be expanded in a form of a metaphor. Okay, that means you're creating a picture. So to do that well, then we have to consider what is the theme, THEME, that you're focusing on, and what exactly do you want to, what is it that you want to open up here that is closed? So these two will be the, what we call that, the difference between how many zero you're going to add behind your coaching bills. Okay. Because it comes with experience, right? It comes with a lot of try and error to figure out these two combinations, the team and what is it that you want to open up. Okay, it means that to some degree, the coach needs to be able to understand what exactly did he notice is that he wants to explore, right? So to begin that quest, we have to come back first to the theme that is in this client story that you want to work with. So remember, the client used a couple of very interesting words, and that's where the core competency of listening to the word of the clients is important. Because by considering the choice of the words that the clients use, you can roughly understand what's the ethos that is happening in the client's experience. So far, so good? Right, great. So that's the power of our transformational approach. Understanding that words speaks more than 1,000 picture. Not a picture speaks more than 1,000 words. Okay, for me, words speaks more than 1,000 picture. So there's a few words that the clients use and that it has been transformed by the coach. Can anyone pick it up? At the beginning part of the client story.
Can I share, Ben?
Go for it, Susan.
I recall that the client used the word bound.
What else? There's a few words that the clients also use. Yes, there's one that is sticky.
Sticky, yeah.
What else? So you have to pick a few so that, I mean, not pick a few, there are a few. So when those few words you are able to pick, it actually form a theme that you can more or less say something about. We have sticky, what else? Transitions. So far so good. Paralyzed. Yep, you got it there. You got it there. Okay. What else? What else are you able to notice about? Wow, I'm sure the next coaching conversation, you're going to listen to every word that the client is speaking. Okay, good. So it is this series of words. Yes, a little person by my own. That's a little bit too I emerge. Yes, I like the word emerge from that. Okay, that's a good observation also. Emerge from that. That the scared, confused, those are feelings. Look at the context. The context. The context. Okay, the context. So these are things that's not taught at the first level, second level, and I think it will be taught only at the third level. No, not yet. This year is going to be okay. This year is going to be okay. The new syllabus for the third level, the context, the road, yes, the techniques. Okay, good. So all this you can see all these words used by the clients as a different layers in which the client is telling you their inner world, right? And this is referring to the context in which the client is in. The context the clients are in, the word that the clients use is transitioned. And in this transition, it's sticky. There are some path that the client is considering, some being paralyzed, dragged down by it, right? So these are the words that I will pay attention to because I'm listening to the context in which the client is in. Of course, to be able to do that, it requires, years, a more advanced knowledge of how people perceive things, right? But because I have the knowledge of understanding context, that means the context in which we are talking, okay, and the contact the client is having. Okay, so this is from the Gestalt awareness theory. It's a very profound science, but it's very useful here. So I'm listening to the context first. So the context that the client is talking about from the oral words is transitions. It has been changed into the first bullet to something else. No, it has been changed to something else in the first bullet. The very first thing that the coach reflect back to the client.
He said change.
Good. And just in case the clients cannot get it, because the word change is a very difficult word to understand, right? So henceforth, do you notice that in the first bullet point, there was an excessive effort to go around it so that the word itself now has a certain meaning, which in other words, a certain flavor is arising for the client's mind to understand. Yeah, it's change is happening. It's not just change as a noun, but change as an impact. Change as things that is not just not the same, but things is different. Right? So there was a tree loop around it. Okay, to just get the mind feel the change, not just saying that, yes, things is change. Do you see the difference? Good. So that's the first thing. So to make a metaphor right now, it has to take into this context of the environment, right? So the beauty of this way of reflecting back is that before the metaphor comes in, which is the third bullet. The third bullet is you are stuck in something that you call sticky. Okay, if it's sticky means it's stuck lah. I mean, implied. Okay, all right. So what is interesting is that the context and the consequence is mediated by an experience, which means I'm going through an experience of feeling and thinking. So far, so good. And do you notice there was no inquiry at all around the feeling? Oh, so sorry. I speak faster. My mind thinks faster than my brain. Go straight to here. There was no inquiry around the experience itself. Because if you do that, the clients become more stuck. Makes sense? Because it is the experience that the client is going through that creates the context of being stuck. So if you make any inquiry around any part of the feelings or the thinking, the client's tension will increase. The tension or where things is holding the clients will increase itself. So for this, it's not taught in anywhere except third level. Okay, we talk about path of least resistance that results in reactivity. Okay, so these are all the signs that is available. So you are using this body of science right now to navigate this sensitive issue by recognizing what are the things that you should not be activating it or expand. You're scratching your head. Oh my God, you told us to expand the mind. Now you tell us not to expand the mind. Well, that's mastery, right? You learn it so well that you are able to now consider how best you can improvise it, right? Good. So I'm fully aware that if any inquiry is made to the thinking or the feeling, that the tension will increase, and henceforth it will be much more difficult to shift the client's perspective or to have any shift happens for the client. It's better in the later part. Any shift happens for the client. So henceforth, do you notice that in the early part of the conversation, I do my utmost best to stop the client from crying? Right. That means we stopped the emotions expressions, the emotional outlet from interrupting the clarity of the mind. It's not that it is not right, but from my science, from my perspective, or from the way I do my coaching, I can recognize that that is not healthy for the clients at this moment. Okay, I want to have more soundness, breakthrough in clarity of the mind. Then when we are able to deal with the emotions, it will be a little bit more of a healthy expression. So kind of like I use my own personal style. Oh, let's hold on that, or whatever that is. You can do it in your own style. Okay, but certainly I will not want to have the emotional expression at that moment. So that explains what happens. So far, so good. Great. And so now we use the context to create the metaphor, because it is important for any shift to happen for people to get a sense of their space. It means space in terms of their mind space. Where are they right now in their own story? Right? So that's where I use sticky, paralyzed, and a transition to create a metaphor. Now, the form of the metaphor right now doesn't matter. You just have to make sure that you get the one closest to represent whatever you want to create. So the best version that I can come out in that moment, and that's where I say you need to give grace for creativity and experience. Okay, good. And for individual preference. So what I can come out in that moment will quicksand. Now, don't ask me, do I have the image of the quicksand before the conversation, or how did I ever come up with the idea of a quicksand? It just come out based on these few characteristics. And I found that it's appropriate because I run through all the metaphor that all the object that I can. That's the best version that I can arrive on, because first I can see a transition between in the sand and out of the sand. And that captures the transitions. And then it also allowed me to pinpoint to the tension, which is the middle part, without me making inquiry, but just having the clients to notice it. Wow, interesting. You might be thinking, are you sure, Ben, you did that in just a split second? It doesn't look like a split. It looks like a split second to you, but it looks like eternity for me at my back of my mind as I try to process them. Okay, but this is what runs through my mind in creating that metaphor. Can do? Great. But you can see the signs of expanding the mind, allowing people to observe as a result of you expanding the mind is universal and fundamental in our approach. How you're going to execute that is going to be freestyle, but it had to be based on the science of how you are thinking. Can do? Great. So we're going to have Janet as the last person, and then we'll close with today's last question is, what have you learned? Okay. Janet, will you be able to go for it? I see that your
Yeah.
hand is raised.
Apologies, I couldn't put the questions in the Mentimeter thing, but just picking up on your metaphor, I think what was, when she talked about stickiness and stuckness, I thought, okay, I can see he's, going for the quicksand. And what I thought was masterly was how it wasn't that she was stuck in this quicksand, it was she was already out of the quicksand and she was concerned about her lovely pink dress. And that is what really connected with her. And I wonder, I don't remember whether it was before or after where she said, the client said, I put on my war paint. And I somewhere in there, I'm wondering, did you consciously pick up, I've put on my war paint and consciously not mention it, but took that as a piece of data that sort of said that she was had a facade and an interior life?
I understand where you're coming from, Janet, and I certainly want to appreciate and acknowledge your sharpness and the sense of maturity that you have in posing these questions. Okay, good. So this is how I'm going to respond. I'm going to respond it like a coin has two sides. Okay, now this is how it goes. Number one, there are always two possibilities of working with shadows. There are two ways of working with the shadow. One is walking away from the shadows, or walking backward away from the light source. Good. It's a matter of where you see your clients facing at this moment.
Nice.
And how you see the clients facing depends on your personal strength as a person. If you are a person who believes in the greatness of humanity, you will tend to want to see the person facing towards the sun more versus them trying to deal with their shadows. So this is where I, in today's coaching conversation, truly believe that the client is walking towards the sun, but there will be the shadow cast behind the client. But just don't look back on those shadows.
Nice.
Right. The way to look at that will be very different from another coach who is maybe his entire life is to resolve issues for people, or the person have not personally experienced pain in life or have not been through so much enough to understand that is this very delicate balance, right? They would tend to run after the shadows and deal with all those, this is some issues here with you. I mean, let's just look at those thought process. Let's look at those feeling of scared and try not to be, if you go in that chain of thought, is either number one, your capacity to transform is quite limited, or the knowledge that is available for you is limited at a certain ceiling, and henceforth you cannot see a greater science to allow you to embody a greater process framework. Or fundamentally, your mind, your coaching mindset, the operating system is more of a resolving coaching mindset. So this will then skew the conversation away from what you are hearing here today. Not saying that this is the best version or that is a wrong version, but we can only say this is perhaps why it explains why such phenomena happens.
Thank you.
Right. I'm so sorry. There's no right or wrong answer, or you will not get a definite answer.
No, I'm interested in your thinking process, and you've answered it.
Yeah, thank you so very much. Okay. Do we have a good time today? Good learning? Great. Now, can you do the homework right now? I'm going to make you work. Okay. So I'm going to create one last Mentimeters. And in this last Mentimeters, we will love to hear from you this question. And that is, what is your learning today? Yay. Okay. So here we go. let me got the link for you, and then go to the chat box and share with us as we close the sessions. What's your learning today? Okay, and then we will use this as our closing. Okay, so let's take a look. What is your learning today? So give each of you a moment, and we're going to collect all the great insights, wisdoms. Wow, there's a lot of signs in the transformative coaching approach. Yes, that's why we call ourselves, I mean, we call this a science-based approach for good reason. Not because it's a marketing gimmicks, okay, but it is really powered up by a certain body of work. That the science works. Yeah. The science work provided the conditions are right. Okay, this is a curfew attached to that because the science works in a certain environment, right? So when the environment has exceptional like resistance that occurs, that is produced as a result of the client's defense mechanism, you may have to navigate the interference. Okay, but again, you can use science to manage the interference, so the science still works, but eventually the client's readiness in the moment to embrace is going to be critical. And I just remember we forgot to answer question number 2 about are you ready to answer that? I'll wrap it up with that. Don't focus too much on the experience, otherwise you'll get stuck. Yeah. That's a good learning. The need to know the context of the environment to make an appropriate metaphor. Wow, that's really very advanced. Okay, that is really the mastery training at the third level. But just stay on. Okay, you'll get there. Okay, you'll get there if you have the appetite for it. Listening, not to feedback, but to listen. Well done. And to elevate. Practice on vertical learning capacity. Yes, I hear 2 things. Use subject matter and relationship in less than 10 words. Okay. Bring lightness, creativity. Yes. So that's where each coach has his own unique style to bring into the conversations. That opens the client's mind for possibility and new learning. Importance, yes. That's why it's a full partnership, right? The coach don't just passively ask, what do you think? The coach brings his maturity, his creativity, his personality, and combine that with the skill set to bring this conversation to a powerful conversations. Good. The difference between a transformational versus a transactional coaching approach. Great. Constantly need to stretch our capacity. Yes, attend more of these live coaching sessions. Okay. You will feel your mind being stretched constantly. Okay. And by the way, my yoga teacher says it's important for you to do stretching. Okay, it helps you to be versatile. Good. How the metaphor of expanding the mind prevent the clients? Yes. Always focus on vertical learning. Great. The sustainability of the horizontal learning, which is a skill set or things that people need to do, is well sustained by a strong vertical learning outcome. Okay, it's not that we only go for vertical learning in the absence of horizontal learning. What we are saying that for horizontal learning to have the greatest impact, it needs to rest on vertical learning. The power of metaphor, the difference between feelings and emotions. If this is something that excites you, watch out for watch out for December class, applying the language of change. Okay, we're going to talk about, and we're going to deep dive into all this human psychology. Create a safe space for the clients to navigate and come up with the learning and maximize her creativity. Observe the safe space and create a metaphor with that in mind. Well done. So for the last questions about checking in with the client, is she ready to share the insight? Well, this is something that you need to know about insight is that people, if in awareness, when you rush into an awareness, even though it is an awareness, it will become an answer, a right answer, right? So as I was observing the clients, one of the value about the next level training is that you get to observe more of the client, learn something more about the client. For those in second level, what marker is that? So second levels, learning style. The client's learning style. Learning style is not whether she's learn by hearing or seeing, but here how the clients process the whole the way she responds to her own insight. The client is pretty quite quick to jump in once something happens, right? So that's the tendency that the client has. So with that in mind, therefore, when the awareness arises, do you want to stop the clients first to say, hey, hold on there first, hold on there first? And then at the same time, the clients also surprise us because the clients has ability to center and anchor. So this is also another learning style that you can observe. So by combining the two, clients is quick to respond. The client is able to anchor and centered. Awareness suddenly arises. Clients want to quickly jump in. What's the best response? Hold on there, hold on there. And then the client did mention, I'm not ready. I'm not sure whether I want to tell you. Hey. So you hold the client's word and say, hold on there. Okay, if you should, hold on there, hold on there, hold on there. Right, by doing that, you have increased the client's ownership of taking responsibility for the process of change. Isn't that marvelous? There's so much to learn, isn't it? So let's give everybody high five for making today such a powerful session. Whoa! So with that, do join us. If any one of you have a great appetite, okay, for learning, this is delicious. It's a buffet spread with high quality fresh food. Yeah, if you are hungry, do consider join us for the next level of learning. It complete and satisfy your thirst and desire. Okay, you'll be well fed. Okay, in the next level. For those in the second level who have completed, well, let me just tell you, there's third level. Okay, and it's starting through also in the month of December. There's also a special exceptional case whereby students without any level can join us for the first module, which is applying the language of change. This is more of a lecture. Trust me, it's really a lecture. Okay, a lecture on human psychology, where it's not lecture as in teaching you, but we'll be going through case studies in which I unpack how the science works. And from that case study, you get to understand a little bit more about human psychology. That will help you to appreciate what your client is experiencing. Okay, so that is available for any levels of the students who simply want to learn more about human psychology. So there's a lot of learning available for you to attend formally to complete the training. To make your training more robust. If not otherwise, the live coaching session is always available every week to help you to learn. One is informal, another one is formal. One is training, the other one is dialogue. So different learning for different needs. Cool? Great. So with that, have a great day. We'll see you. Take care, everybody. Bye. And this is a farewell song.
Achieve, you can live out all your dreams. It's about time you knew the truth. You got the power all in you. To achieve, you must believe. You can live out all your dreams. Persevere, you'll make it through. What you need is all in you.
Oh, thank you. Boon, take care, everybody. Jane, take care. Karen, take care. Glad to see you. Great. Ah, I'm exhausted. But we really need faculty members next time when we're doing the next few sessions. If it's
And the
going to be
recording is still on.
no. Oh yes.